Welcome back to World Insight. We're into the last part of this program, and for that, let's cross over to another side of the world. The Malvinas Islands, called the Falklands in Britain, have long been known for its disputes over its sovereignty. Almost 30 years after Argentina and Britain went to war, and relations have dipped again over oil explorations by British companies. Memories of that conflict are still very much fresh, and many wonder whether this row could lead to a restart in hostilities.
For 2 centuries, residents of the Malvinas Islands have lived on fish and sheep, off the sea and the land. But now something more valuable may change their way of life. When the British company Explorer Desire Petroleum began to drill on the first oil well on Monday, the change came closer. The recovery of the potential billions of barrels of oil beneath the waves have brought in British companies. And with them comes anger from Argentina, which has long claimed sovereignty over the islands.
The Malvinas issue could be seen as a clear example of what happens with the international law, where those who have a permanent seat on the UN Security Council can violate once and 1,000 times systematically the resolutions of the UN.
Britain's foreign minister rejects Argentina's objections.
British sovereignty in respect of the Falklands is absolutely clear in international law and in international politics. There's no question about it. Second point, the exploration that's going on off the Falklands, the hydrocarbons exploration that is going on, is fully within international law, fully based on precedent.
In protest, the Argentine government announced that any ship traveling to or from the islands must get prior permission from the government. And though both sides have played down the prospect of military conflict, British newspapers say a British submarine had been made available to supplement the routine military presence around the islands. One Chinese analyst says for Argentina, it's more about face.
If Argentina doesn't take further actions against the exploration, the possibility of military conflict between the two countries is minor. Argentina's block of the seaports is just symbolic. It only requires permission for those traveling between its own ports and the islands. Ships could still travel to the islands from other various directions. From historic lessons and the current military reality, Argentina will be cautious about any further action.
For Argentina, it surely has its Latin American allies on its side.
Look, England, how much longer we will stay in the Malvinas? Queen of England, the time of empires is over, haven't you heard? Queen of England, give the Malvinas back to the Argentine people.
The dispute over the Malvinas dates back to the 19th century when the islands were seized by the British. Argentina has sought their return ever since. The strategic importance of the islands is great. They hold the channel between the Pacific and South Atlantic Oceans. Talks held during the 1970s failed to resolve the issue. On April 2, 1982, Argentine President Leopoldo Galtieri announced that his forces had reclaimed the islands from the British.
If they want to come, let them come.
British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher reacted quickly. Within 3 days, the Queen Elizabeth II cruise ship was carrying 3,000 troops, part of an armada bound some 12,900 kilometers away. It was the biggest naval action since the Second World War. The fight lasted for more than 2 months. Argentina surrendered on June 14th. More than 900 men had lost their lives. 10 years later, when Margaret Thatcher visited the Malvinas, she recalled her resolve.
Our people's land and livelihood had been taken, and we had to come and get it back to them. There was just total sense of purpose, and everyone wanted to do something to help.
Britain and Argentina restored diplomatic relations in 1990, but the status of the Malvinas remains a contentious issue. Britain's recent moves for oil exploration has sent tensions soaring, reviving Argentine memories of 28 years ago.
A war would be something stupid because we already lost the 1982 war and we know we wouldn't be able to fight against them. It will bring back the memories of 1982, knowing that many youngsters died for nothing.
To get into a war again, it would not be worth it.
Analysts say Argentina's leader knows well that the country is still no military match for Britain. Its first elected female president, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, is mainly using the Malvinas issue to win over domestic support. Some compare her with Margaret Thatcher, Britain's first female leader.
28 years ago, Thatcher's situation was quite different from Fernandez's. Thatcher was known as the Iron Lady who took a tough stance towards both domestic and international issues. At that time, it was also against the backdrop of the Cold War era. For Fernandez, she hasn't dealt well with some domestic issues. The Malvinas crisis just gave her a chance to show her leadership on the international stage, but it's unlikely that she will go further to provoke Britain.
On the British side, Prime Minister Gordon Brown faces a difficult domestic situation. With the general election coming in May, his unpopularity is a big liability for the Labour Party. This week, Brown was accused of being violent with staff when he became angry. Internationally, Britain already has wars to fight in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Argentina has no practical measures to stop Britain from oil drilling around the islands, so Britain will probably continue its actions under pressure. But Argentina will make Britain's colonial mindset known to the world through various channels. It intends to increase the difficulties and costs of Britain's exploration, and it hopes to share the interests of oil reserves in the end.
Argentina's foreign minister, Jorge Tayana, went to the UN on Wednesday to seek help to resolve the Malvinas issue. Since 1965, the UN has passed resolutions asking Argentina and Britain to sit down for talks. But after 1982, no negotiations on sovereignty have ever taken place.
Argentina has always been willing to negotiate, but as long as Great Britain does not sit at the negotiating table, Argentina will persist in its claim and in the defense of its rights and interests.
One estimate has put the amount of oil around the Malvinas at 60 billion barrels, enough to supply Britain for 20 years. As the islands are close to the Antarctic, they could serve as a transfer station for polar exploration. For the island's 3,000 residents who are mainly British descendants, they understand their tie with Britain will strengthen, and the question of their land's sovereignty will continue to hang over its channel with Argentina.
Well, the crisis over the Malvinas is a new development of a very old row. As Argentina demands UN intervention to compel Britain to negotiate, officials in London have suggested that they are ready to work with Buenos Aires over the Malvinas oil, but Britain refuses to budge on sovereignty. With that, we come to the end of this programme. If you've got questions or suggestions of what you've just seen over the past 30 minutes, please email me at worldinsight@cctv.com. I'm James Chow on behalf of the team here. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week for your insight on World Insight.